Welcome to Privet Palm Beach Presents, bringing you everything Palm Beach. Coming to you from our active storefront studio in the exciting new Nora District. This week brings us perfectly Palm Beach with host JAYNE Chase. Be sure to stay tuned for the weekly Privet update at the end of this episode. We're just getting started, so subscribe, follow, like, and share our multiple channels. You can find Perfectly Palm Beach candles and diffusers at local stores, including Lily Pulitzer, Hive, and at perfectlypb.com. The perfect Palm Beach gift.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Perfectly Palm Beach. We are back in the studio this hot summer morning in Palm Beach, and I am so happy to welcome my good friend, Korinne Belock, who I've known for several years. I'm so impressed by what she has done and accomplished with her business. And if you're like me and you're really interested in people that are on their second, third, fourth, and fifth chapters and pivoting in a way that looks very seamless, and you want to know how to do that, she's the gal to tune in to listen to. So I'm so happy to have you here, Korinne.
Thank you for having me. And thank you for acknowledging the pivots.
You know, really, you learn, I guess, at a certain point in life that everything doesn't follow a straight line. And I think things have changed so much. Post-COVID, there's so many new businesses that have popped up, but people have gotten creative, and more people than I ever knew in my life have pivoted. I mean, almost everybody I know. And I think particularly being in a place like Palm Beach County, where the ages run from 25 to 95, everybody's doing something interesting and different than they started out doing.
Totally.
So let's talk about you and your story.
Sure.
And you went from politics to being a super duper organizer, which is how I met you. And now you own this amazing business. So share with our viewers how you've done that.
It's really interesting. And I don't know if it's the universe or my own, sure will, but it seems like my life has been divided into these 10-year chapters. And so from graduating college in Texas, at University of Texas at Austin, I was working in politics in college and immediately said, well, I'll move to Washington, D.C. I'll work
Makes
in
sense.
D.C.
Makes
Yes,
sense.
the big time, right?
Yeah.
So was lucky enough to find a job there pretty quickly. This was back in the olden days. I mean, I was looking at ads in the newspaper, but it's a little embarrassing how long ago it was.
Pre-cell phone.
Pre-cell phone.
Yeah.
So I moved there in 2001, right after the 9/11 attacks. You have to be young and dumb to move to Pentagon City while the Pentagon's still on fire, and just say, well, this is what's happening. I've got to go.
Oh my gosh, your parents must have been hysterical.
Really? My mother was, she supported my strong-willedness, let's just put it that way. But she was like, you gotta go, you gotta do this. So that is to fast forward. So I was in DC and then got a position on the Republican National Convention in New York City in 2003, which is where I met Mike Bloomberg and his top political people. And then it sort of led into like a 10-year trajectory of working for Mike on a couple of his campaigns, working in the White House and under George W. Bush at the time, and then back working with Mike for about 10 years. It was crazy.
And he was really developing Bloomberg Media at that point too. So he was kind of doing both. So it must have been so exciting to be there.
He was doing both. I mean, and he was, the mayor of New York City. And
who was the mayor then?
Mike was the mayor.
Oh, Mike was the mayor. Oh my God,
yes.
We loved him when he was there.
So,
that's right.
Yeah, he was in 3 terms. And I worked on his second and third term races, which now feels like a lifetime ago. But it was the time when New York City was like pulling itself back up from 9/11, and there was so much development. It had never been safer, never been better.
The city was so unified.
Totally.
Then. Yeah.
And so I like to think it was the best time ever to live in Manhattan when the time that we did. So I feel very lucky about that.
I agree with you that we were there at a really good time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
It was a great time.
So how do you go from politics to doing something so different, being an organizer? It was called Urban Simplicity,
Urban Simplicity. So I sort of hit a wall with politics. As much as I loved working with Mike Bloomberg and his folks, I wasn't I didn't want to go back into the administration at City Hall. Government has always been a little slow moving for me. I love campaigns. I love the political side of stuff.
It is a tough slog.
But
it's a tough slog.
And
yeah.
It's meetings all day and nothing really gets accomplished.
Gets done.
And
I know. It's so frustrating.
It's really slow. So I sort of took a beat and said, look, I'm ready to pivot. I didn't know into what yet, but I knew that when my life is in chaos and all I do is work 24/7, I would have a calling to like organize my home. But what's interesting about that is that what I was doing in politics, as I looked back and I started Urban Simplicity, it was organizing. I was a field organizer and I was a political organizer.
That's so interesting.
On
you
the
took those
logistical
skills and were you conscious that you had those skills, and was that a conscious connection that you made then?
I think that the politics was so rigorous, the White House, the mayoral races, that like you had to be organized to get to the level we were at. So it just, my brain, I almost really think my brain was still forming when I worked in politics, and it was forming into this organized, plan-making, process-driven sort of person.
So interesting.
And this was in my 20s, essentially. Yeah. And now we know our brains are still forming at that time, right?
Well, you were making sense out of chaos.
Exactly. And so when I was able to think, what do I want to do next? That was the thing I knew that I could do. And I knew I'd always wanted to start something. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I had no interest in going into a consulting firm. I had no interest in going back into City Hall. I wanted to build something myself. Mm-hmm. And I think having seen the way we built the campaigns, it was almost like well, if I can build that, certainly I can build an organizing business, right?
Yeah.
If it's just me or a couple assistants, figure it out. So that's sort of how I got there, funny enough.
Wow. And Urban Simplicity was your business.
It was my business. I started in Manhattan in 2010.
Brave. That's brave in itself.
And it was really before Instagram had kind of hit.
Yeah. So getting the word out was in a different way, right? Different path.
Totally different path. And then within a couple of years, Instagram did become a thing. So then it really started to catch on across the country. But people in Manhattan look like my sweet spot of clientele was the ladies that are like, I have 3 kids, I work in finance, and I'm never going to be able to do this. And they could afford to hire me to do it. And so I understood them very well too, because of coming from a professional background. So I just made such great clients and relationships like over those years, and did that literally 10 years up until COVID.
You had 20 years of sheer exhaustion, because a political campaign, I've worked on one, it is exhausting. And then organizing somebody else's space is exhausting.
It's physical. It's way more physical than I think anybody kind of understands.
Yeah.
And in Manhattan, it's a lot of schlepping, right? So you're like, Container Store
this is what you do when you're young.
It is. Oh yeah. Couldn't do it now. Could not do it now. No, thank you.
So how did you get from Urban Simplicity to Palm Beach Regency, which is everyone's favorite store?
Oh, thank you. Well,
the warehouse and the store.
It's a lot of fun. It's truly a COVID story. 2020 came around. At this point, we were living down here full time, but I would still go back to New York about once a month for clients. And COVID hits and I couldn't go anywhere. And so we were here fully. And it was a really hard time to be able to see your business sort of falling apart in front of you, but then knowing I was lucky. My husband still had his job. We were going to be okay. But all the other small business owners that I'd met over the years, and all the salons that couldn't work, the technicians, all those people, right? And it was, to look back on it was a really hard time. But what I really, truly had to do was build some structure into that time period where you couldn't work. And so I started working on business plans. And I wrote everything I thought I ever could do or would want to do.
You are such a go-getter. Whoa, that is just being so motivated.
It was, honestly, it was sanity saving more than anything. And creative and, I was able to brainstorm, which, you don't do a lot when you're organizing, right? You're really physical and tactile.
Yes.
And so it was opening up a part of the creative side of my brain that I hadn't really accessed in many years.
Yeah.
And out of that came a lot of crazy plans, things that were never going to happen.
I know. You're going to have to share some of those with us.
Oh my goodness. I was about to like patent a keyhole fob. I mean, I was ready to like do anything at that point. I was like, anything that prevents me from like mopping my floors again, during that like, dark period when we couldn't really do much of anything. So, funny enough, how it all came out was one of the main ideas that I had sort of gotten into was I'd been traveling in Central and South America for a while. This was sort of before the beautiful hand-woven things were actually as accessible as they are now. And I was like, I could do this. I could import this. I could sell this. I think I could. Now I'm like, oh my gosh, thank God I didn't. That would have been so terribly exhausting. But it really was starting to like pivot into the more retail side of
stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The like, this is pretty. I think I can sell it, which is so crazy.
Retail's tough.
It's tough.
Yeah.
And so had really come to that as the thing that I was going to focus on in terms of the business development side of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was also very interested in a vintage clothing component. This was before I was always thinking like Cherish, but for vintage clothes was like my idea.
And Cherish hadn't done that yet.
Cherish hadn't, they had gotten into jewelry, but they hadn't gotten into clothing. And it was like,
interesting.
Not the real, it was like truly vintage stuff. Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Anyways, had all these ideas, but I ended up going into Palm Beach Regency where I knew the owners.
To the warehouse. Right. Which is up on North Lake, guys. And if you don't know about it, you better put it in your calendar and run there. Because it's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah. It's chaos, but it's chaos.
Organized chaos. I don't think it's chaos. It's exactly how antique shoppers want to shop.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. I love to hear that.
Yes, it's fabulous.
It's a lot.
I mean, I walk in and get all excited because I know that there's things all around that I'm going to want.
Yeah.
It's so great. I love how you kind of set it up.
Lots of treasures hidden in.
Yeah.
But anyways, I thank you. I had gone in randomly one day and said to the owners, hey, have you ever, I was shopping around and started talking about, the challenges of not being able to do the organizing business. I was ready to pivot out of it. It had been 10 years. And they literally were like, do you want to buy the business? And I was like, yes, immediately. No thought.
Till that Tuesday morning. Wow. Yeah. Incredible. But you have taken that warehouse and then the retail store that you now have on South Dixie that's next to Chelsea Lane, you have taken that up to another level. The store's pretty. You want to walk in, you want to buy everything because you want to touch everything. It's so pretty. The warehouse is, let's get down to business. I need a table and chairs. I need a dresser.
Yes.
You work with the trade. You also buy from people. But there's a beautiful organizational flow, as I said before, to that space.
Thank you.
How do you do that? And how do you get, tell everybody how you get all your stuff?
Yes. Well, that I'm happy to share. People, that's probably the question I get most to ask the most. So it's really like multiple ways. And I don't like to be coy about it because it's you should know. I mean, how else are we finding these things, right? So I go through traditional means of like pickers. If you've ever seen the show American Pickers, there are people out there in South Florida and all over the country that literally all they do all day is go around to find things to buy to resell to people like me. So of course, those relationships are huge and I work with them a ton.
Wow.
And
how do you find those people?
At this point now, when I bought the business, a couple of people came along with that purchase.
And the network just kind of grew
exactly.
from there.
And then I really credit.
I didn't know that.
I know it's random, right?
Yeah.
And they're always characters. Like, I
can imagine.
They've got a lot.
How do you make any money doing that, being a picker? Is that what they're called, pickers?
They're called pickers.
I think we need to find a better name.
I know.
Sorry,
I know.
Yeah.
I know it's not very flattering.
Or something. I don't know.
Curators,
exactly.
Well, it's a funny business, but it's great. I've met and worked with a ton of them. some better than others, you always got to like find your relationships,
Right, of course, right.
And it's interesting because some people that worked with the business before, I've gravitated to new people. So,
Right, yes.
So that is a huge piece of it. But the second piece of it is because we've been able to get our name out so much better on social media, the website, all that, searching on Google searches, investing in that piece of it so that our images come up when people are looking for faux bamboo. People come to us now with things to sell because they're like, my grandmother had a home full of this, but there's no way we're ever going to take all of it. And so there's a lot of that.
Well, it's interesting because I think unlike, I would say maybe a handful of stores that I know of, you are the same as some of the other retail stores where you set trends. So all of a sudden, McGuire is hugely popular now, right? And Shell mirrors are really popular.
Yeah.
And is it Belecki?
Mm-hmm.
That furniture, rattan, all that stuff that was kind of old world Florida is now everybody's wants it, and it's hard to find.
I know. I was watching a show the other night set in the Hamptons, and it was just like this incredible sofa. And I was like, to see that in such a high-end home on this show in the Hamptons, I was like, this means that it's in everywhere. Do you know what I mean? It's not just for Florida anymore. Totally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When we had a house in Sagaponack, there was a store that was called Ruby Beats. And it was, as my mother would say, oh, that's junk. Oh, that's junk. And it was sort of junk then, but it's not now.
No.
And it's just wild how these trends happen. And I think people like you sort of set those. I think that's a cool thing to be able to do that.
I think it's giving, I think that technology, photo editing, social media, all that stuff has helped because you can now show the pieces in a really fresh way. Mm-hmm. Not everybody can envision it when they go into a vintage store and say like that coffee table.
Or I can paint that, or I can change I can do a faux finish or whatever it is.
Exactly, which we help people with all the time. Mm-hmm. So I think that it's, we focus really hard on that so that people can see the piece, imagine it in their home. We spend a lot of time with the people in the shops, like thinking through that.
Right.
And look, the scale of vintage is a little smaller, so it works for down here, particularly with all the development and high rises and things that we're seeing in South Florida.
Exactly.
So there's just a lot of things that make it really work and make it really fun for people. And we always say, of course, it's about the mix. You don't want to have a whole home of vintage, but like mix it in and
Well, you've done that so well, Korinne, in your house in El Cid.
Thank you.
I mean, you really have. I don't think that as I went through that the other day looking at the tour that's on Homeworthy.
Yes.
That it was a lot of styles that I wasn't even familiar with. And that mix I thought was super unique. Not everybody has that eye or knowledge. So you've done a great job.
Thank you. Thank you. I think it's a collection is the main thing for me is it's collection. And I do always gravitate to clean lines too, though, which is interesting. So somehow it all comes together.
So where are the trends going then, do you think? Are we staying in that, in all of those elements that I talked about, or no?
It's really interesting. As a vintage shop owner, it's hard for me to say trend because everything we sell and everything down here is so classic, right? So people that have moved down here have gravitated to Palm Beach for a reason. So they're sort of adopting the mentality, right? We're not afraid of color. We're not afraid of leaning into the island style. We're not afraid to be a little more classic, 1950s sort of glamour,
Getting away from the neutrals and bringing in color.
Exactly.
And even if you've brought all your brown furniture with you, it's nice to lighten it all
There's
up.
a way to
mix it. Yeah.
And so I find a lot of joy in helping people realize that just because it's old, it doesn't have to feel stayed in your home, right? There's a way to freshen it up. So I stay away from the word trend necessarily because of the vintage piece. But at the same time, if you follow design online, it is color city. I mean, it is color
everywhere.
The top designers that I love, it's incredible what they're doing.
It's not just down here now. I mean, it's everywhere.
Yeah. You'll see a cabin in North Carolina that's drenched in color. And you'll see places in the middle of lake homes in Illinois. We do a bunch of that. And they're taking pattern and color. And so I hope, because I love color, that is something that stays. And so, that's what I would say.
I love that. So where is the business going now? I mean, like, what's the plan? Because you've got that beautiful warehouse and a beautiful retail store in South Dixie now that is, gifty and beautiful candles in there.
Yes, JAYNE candles. We love
Palm Beach candles in there. I'm so
candles.
grateful to you. Yeah.
No,
but
the packaging's beautiful.
Thank you. But there's a lot of great things you can just run in and pick up, and
thank you for mentioning that. It is. So I think that where the business is going is that the expansion from Southern Boulevard to Forest Hill is crazy and is amazing. So if you know,
Miami does design district, right?
Exactly. So we are calling it the So-So Design District. And between the reputable businesses that have been on Georgia Avenue for years and years and years, and the dealers on Georgia Avenue, to new businesses that are now popping up along Dixie Highway, that's where we see the new energy flowing. So I've been working with Chelsea Lane, our neighbor, and we've formally set up the So-So Design District, which we're really, really excited. We've got a handful of businesses on board, and we'll be gathering more throughout the summer. And I think that, look, it's an opportunity for us to drive traffic out of just the island and out of downtown, but down to South Dixie. I mean, you've got Blue Door, you've got incredible restaurants.
Fabulous places popping up everywhere.
And more popping up every day.
Yeah. And I think the thing is that, and maybe social media has been part of this impact, is that businesses like yours have really reached out and developed relationships with interior designers.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And so it's like, come on in, let me help you. I know you've got a client that's looking for this.
Yes.
I've got this. I think that is what's changed a lot of the businesses, right?
Well, what I would say is that you look at where the designers are gathering, right? And they're gathering in New York, they're gathering in Atlanta, they're gathering
Dallas,
in Dallas,
Nantucket
for the design week there, and they're gathering in Palm Beach.
Definitely.
Which, you now have designers that are popping up that have a base in Boston and Palm Beach and whatever. And that's an incredible influx to the design community, because it means that they're adopting the style here and hopefully bringing it other places. But so that's been fascinating to see between, Palm Beach Design Days and having that drive an eye to what's going on down here is
and
just
Kips
incredible.
Bay has exploded. Yes. I mean, everywhere in the best way.
Totally.
Yeah.
And Kips Bay brings people from all over, just obsessed to see how they've, done these homes. And so Kips Bay Design Days, we're so entrenched in a part of all that. And it's just amazing relationships for the community. And so we hope So-So Design District can just support that and kind of grow with it.
So exciting. I love that. I love making it an association, because when you're driving down South Dixie, there are a lot of cars. There's a lot going on. You got to pay attention.
Yeah.
So when you know that this is the design district, you can park, get out and start walking.
Having a map,
just like Miami.
Exactly.
I love it. I love
having
that you're
recommended
that.
Itineraries and all that stuff. So yes.
Good for you. Smart girl.
Fun.
So do we think we're going to open up anywhere else that you can share with us, or who knows?
My goodness. Oh my goodness.
Too much.
Right now, it might be too much.
Two babies. You've got
two babies. I'm focusing on the two babies for now. But I would love to have something bigger and more eventually. And I think it's just finding the right place and that's hard right now in this environment, which, real estate's kind of challenging. But I am always open to how we can do more and do it better.
Something tells me that that's going to happen for you, between your positive outlook, your business knowledge, and your organic flow in your life, really, how everything has kind of flowed in a very organic way. it's really, I love, kind of looking at that from the outside and seeing how all your golden threads have come together. I really hope that we've helped some other people. If you're listening today and you're thinking about starting a business or wondering what your next chapter is, I think, Korinne, you've really just done a beautiful job in establishing that and helping others really understand how to do that. So come back and share things with us and let us know what's going on in your world.
Keep you posted.
Keep us posted. And thank you so much for tuning in to Perfectly Palm Beach again today. We're going to have a new segment again next week, so stay tuned.
Here are Privet Picks of the Week. Recommendations for Palm Beachers by Palm Beachers. Did you know there's a new restaurant in town? The new Cafe Drift is family owned and located in the previous pastry heaven spot next to the Palm Beach Historical Inn. Offering coffee, pastries, sandwiches, salads, smoothies, and more, you have to check it out. Privet tip, you must get the chocolate chip cookie. What's a better activity for the whole family than something that's both fun and educational? Science and Sunshine with Cox Science Center happens every second Friday of the month from 2 to 4 p.m. at City Place. Enjoy interactive themed demonstrations that will leave everyone leaving with some type of new knowledge. A healthy lifestyle just became more affordable at Amici Market. Enjoy Happy Juice Hour. Every weekday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., enjoy half-off juices, shots, and smoothies. The perfect way to start your day. Privet Palm Beach Presents is a production of Privet Studios and is available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify platforms. You could reach out to us on Instagram at Privet Palm Beach and at theprivet.com. Thanks to the Privet Studios team, including Summers Laffey, Will Cannon, our friends at Mass Inbound, and music by Kevin MacLeod.